Today I want to talk to you about cocking and decocking an ACUslide crossbow. So the first step, if your trigger box is up under your scope rail, is you want to hit the lock latch lever, and then with your other hand, with your left hand, you want to take this trigger box down the barrel in a controlled fashion. And what I'm watching as I take this trigger box down, I want to watch that safety go from red to white as I attach it to the bowstring. So you can see there it went from red to white. So now we're ready to crank the crossbow back. Just put your crank handle into the socket, crank it back. And again, with these, you can stop anywhere along the way. If you happen to lose that crank handle, it's not going to spin freely and cause any problems. As the trigger box gets back underneath the scope rail, you're going to listen and watch that lock latch lever, and you'll hear it click and you'll see it move. There it moved. So now what you want to do is one backwards rotation, take the crank handle out. You want to depress the gear stop button with your left hand and just spin this knob out until it stops. That's all you have to do to cock the crossbow. I want to talk to you about what those steps are when we get done with the cocking process, why we do the back winds, and what it does. So on that first backwards rotation with the crank handle, what we're doing is we're taking the pressure off of the strap and we're putting it onto the latch. This gives a consistent anchor point every time. It also drops the trigger box level with the barrel so that the retention brush holds the arrow firmly. After that, we held the gear stop button and we spun the collar backwards. And what we're doing there is we're opening the brake system up. That way, the trigger box will go down to the bowstring smoothly on the next cocking cycle. So again, the first backwards rotation with the crank handle takes the pressure off the strap, puts it onto the latch, gets the trigger box exactly where it needs to be, and then holding the gear stop button and loosening that collar is opening the brake system up for the next cocking cycle. These are two important steps in the accuracy and loading process. So you have to do these every time. Now we have the crossbow cocked, and let's say we hunted all day, didn't shoot the bow, and now we want to go ahead and decock the crossbow and let the trigger box down. So the first thing that you're going to do is we're going to, with our left hand, apply a little bit of forward pressure to that lock latch lever. So I just hold the stock and apply a little bit of pressure. That latch is not going to move yet. Put your crank handle in, crank forward, and it'll get tight, but you'll then feel with your left thumb that latch lever will give way. So hold that latch lever down, give the bow a backwards rotation. At that point, you can actually let go of the latch lever because it's now the trigger box is clear of the latch. And you're just going to back wind. And again, if you happen to lose the crank handle as you're back winding, nothing's going to happen. It's going to stay in a braked position. And so you just take the trigger box down until it's level with the bowstring. There's no pressure on the strap. And you can leave it that way and leave it just attached to the bowstring until next time you shoot it. Doesn't hurt anything. Then you just take the crank handle off, store it in the stock, and you're good to go. I want to briefly talk to you about the set screw that's on top of the trigger box. You'll see it's surrounded by a sticker. The sticker notification has nothing to do with the screw itself other than it kind of highlights where that screw is. That screw is a safety tension adjust, and that screw set properly should have 1/2 to 1 thread sticking above the top of the trigger box. If that screw works its way out to 2 or 3 threads sticking above the top of the trigger box, your safety won't stay in the fire position. So if you have that and your safety wants to jump back to safe, check that screw because it probably has a couple threads showing. Just tighten that back down again where it has about 1/2 a thread above the surface of the trigger box and you're all set.